So for starters, I don't really like, um, placing labels on people and whatnot. But as far as clarity and speaking goes, and just people kind of coming from a point of reference, words like narcissism or codependency, empathy, these type of words are good to kind of discuss like a definition on, just for the sake of explaining phenomenons and stuff. But it's never meant to be like a label, like, dang, this person has some deadly disease and they'll never recover, they'll never be normal. It's not to be used like as a judgment like that, but more as just kind of an explanation for a phenomenon, I guess. So with that being said, I also think that there are a spectrum of phenomenons and of personality manifestations, energetic manifestations. So basically, let's get into body, soul, spirit, and then I'll go into that definition. So it really seems that, we're all born with a body, and then we have our mind, our thoughts, our desires, our emotions. And that kind of seems to be in the realm of soul and like your personality and what the things that you enjoy. And then the spiritual dynamic, like the mystery of the spirit realm, and what are angels, what are demons, what is energy. Energy is all around us and we can feel it and experience it. And there's a lot of stuff in the paranormal field or the metaphysical and quantum physics field that tries to explain and demonstrate this phenomenon of spirituality and spiritual energy, and how this affects us, and how emotions play into that, the realm of spirituality and stuff. And it's a really fascinating thing. And uh as far as the complex nature of psychology and the topic of narcissism, I think it's important to talk about how, um when we're forming in the womb and then when we're born, the prefrontal cortex of our brain is forming for quite a while, and that part of the brain feels loved and secure when the parents are looking at the child, with love in their eyes. That helps this part of the brain form, and this part of the brain is responsible for empathy, the development of human empathy, and a sense of security and stability and belonging. And it's a very important part of the brain. And even though it forms a lot during these younger years, I do believe it's something that adults can heal. And I believe it's something that can always be healed and expanded. So, as far as empathy goes, it's interesting because it's formed. I do believe it's innately within us at the beginning, but then I believe that it's also formed, kind of like all the information for a tree is inside of a seed, but that seed still needs sunshine and water and soil and different things. It might need protection from birds and stuff like this. So it's nature and nurture for the development of empathy in the human soul and the human experience. And so there's a lot of reasons why a person might have a lot or not very much of empathy, or it might come natural to them or not very natural to them. There's reasons why people have a ton of empathy and they can be called empaths. And we can get into that a little bit later. But um, as far as this definition, we're getting to a lot of textbooks and material that cover the topic explain that people who seem to lack empathy, they might be able to show compassion, but there's a difference between compassion and empathy. So with compassion, You know, you could hear about an event and be like, oh, those poor people, too bad that happened to them. You know, that's got to be hard. And that's kind of more compassion. Empathy is something that moves you to the point where you feel like you could feel what it would be like to be in their shoes, where you want to make a difference, where you're like inspired from within to do something to help, where you you feel what that person or that animal or that, you know, scenario would feel like as if it was you. And that can be in various degrees. Again, there's a spectrum, I feel, but people who just don't really tend to feel empathy, the label for narcissism has been given to explain this phenomenon, and I think is definitely something that there's hope for, but it's also not just a nature nurture thing. I do believe that the reason why a lot of textbooks say, you know, there's no cure for this, or a lot of self-help books say things like you better run like hell if you meet someone who lacks empathy or who displays these sociopathic psychopath tendencies, because they lack a soul at some level. Like they're willing to get their needs met at the cost of anyone and anything. They don't have a sense of, you know, boundaries in that way. It's like their survival is willing. They're willing to survive even if it harms others who love them, and they just don't seem to have like a compass for how to provide for their emotional needs without harming or without being willing to take from others. Um, and I do believe there's a spiritual element to this phenomenon, which we can get into later. But I feel that this is why the textbooks in medical terms say that there's no answer or no hope, is because they don't want to really get into the psychology and the spirituality of what's going on here. And, you know, some people say this is demonic. I think there's uh a total case for using that word. Some people could call it dark energy, um, a type of a polarity, type of like an energy vampire situation. But it, to me, it doesn't matter as much what we call these things as that we're talking about a similar phenomenon. And so that's kind of a starter for this.
Hey Cosmic, thank you so much. Do I sound okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you for, bringing me up on the stage and responding to my message. I did somehow this did come up on my algorithm, and so I that's why I messaged you, because I had just gone through um this whole thing, and I was really surprised to see this pop up. I guess there's the algorithm reading me, but um uh without going into detail, I was just involved in so I run some meditation spaces, and I've been into spirituality for many, many years. I So I encountered a person with a dark a demon attached to them, an attachment that was feeding them these sort of nightmare scenarios where they are hurting people. And this person, also, I'm not dropping any names, and this is a recorded space. I'm very reluctant to even talk about this, but I feel like maybe it's important to get this out, that when we're in spaces where people who are leading them, or just anyone that might be in a space that's affected in this way, um, that that when we're speaking, opening our aura, our energetic field, our chakras, we're actually, there is an energetic field that we're we're transmitting and receiving this energy. And so as that happens, when you encounter someone who has an attachment, has something like this occurring to them, it makes you more susceptible to the effects of that. And I think it's very, very important that we're very careful and cautious about, um, like first remaining on like a sort of guard when we enter new spaces where we don't know who's speaking or anything like that. And and I think it's important to also just recognize that when you're exchanging this energy that it can be very detrimental. And I'm trying to find the right words. Does what I said so far make sense to you?
Yes, it absolutely makes sense, and you don't have to filter anything. And uh, I hope that your heart can be set at ease. The main reason we're recording is because there's some people who can't be on, at the time. But I've already created the intention and the energetic protection so that only those who are meant to hear this will. But yes, everything you're saying makes sense, and feel free to keep sharing.
So I'm at a point where I'm about to quit t Twitter, and I've never been very much of a social media person anyway, and but I do host these meditation spaces, and people really love them. I mean, they're more like shamanic healing spaces, but I'm giving my energy to and guiding these people through these exercises, and when people come out of them, their auras are brighter. They feel alive, more alive. And so more and more people were listening to these meditations, um and I felt like that was my service to humanity. And what I began experiencing a few days ago was a systematic attack. I would go into spaces where I knew the people, they were my friends. And when I brought up some of the events that were taking place, I was gaslit. I was told that I was crazy, that, like, oh, dude, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, this person is totally fine. It's all good. You're overreacting. Many, many things. And I couldn't believe it. I was just like, I thought you were my friend. And so what I'm learning is, perhaps I'm not sure if there's a type of loyalty here on spaces. I am a bit new to the whole space environment. I've been here for maybe 3 months, and so I know a lot of people have been here for a lot longer. And yeah, so I'm just at that point, but I'm not sure, Cosmic, I'm not sure, like, if I quit, if I stop doing these spaces where people benefit so much from them, does the dark win? Am I letting the dark win?
I'd say that that's a great question. Okay, so a couple of thoughts here. Number one, excellent job on being the change needed, because these meditation spaces that you're creating, and I listened to a little bit of that this morning, so thank you. But this meditation is profoundly powerful on metaphysical and physical levels. It is one of the key solutions for world peace. So I highly encourage you to keep that up. And I would like to comment on the kind of the energy you were feeling there. It is important in regards to energetic and spiritual healing for us to have boundaries, because it is an interesting phenomenon. It almost seems to me that these dark energies or spirits, I know this is kind of an interesting um uh, topic, but we should go there because it's all over the place. Like, people talk about this all the time. This phenomenon is not, it's it's very well documented. It's just kind of mysterious, but it almost seems sometimes like whatever this spirit realm or this dark energy realm is, it seems like it knows or recognizes or can see this aura field that you're talking about of people who are, here trying to make a difference and shift the energy field with meditations and healings. And sometimes those people, such as yourself and myself, do get targeted. I've had some really strange paranormal situations, even in religious or churchy settings, where people who were like this girl who was on a mission trip that I was a part of when I was younger, when I was into a lot of religious settings, her voice changed to a man's voice. And this thing in her that was a spirit or demon or dark energy, doesn't matter what you call it, literally said with a man's voice that it hates me. And I've encountered quite a few different paranormal experiences like this over the years. So there's something going on there, sort of mysterious, interesting. I would encourage you not to give up, and to just realize that there's an element of energetic protection that's important for us to set up for ourselves, and that we don't just allow anyone to have access to us, and that if somebody's being disrespectful, that you can kick them off the meditation or whatever you need to do to keep it a safe place, because boundaries are loving. Boundaries are loving to yourself and to everyone. And if you don't protect yourself, you won't be able to give to others. Imagine if you were a well of water that was feeding a village, and, you know, if you didn't put a lid on the well and you just allowed any old animal to fall in there, then the whole village is going to suffer because they don't have pure water. So just take good care of yourself, have spiritual and energetic boundaries, don't tolerate toxicity, stay kind, and keep making a difference, because I mean, I really personally, I haven't had a negative experience with social media or with Twitter Spaces. I feel I've only had positive experiences. And maybe the couple times that I felt like somebody was a little bit disrespectful on a space, it gave me a chance to show what it looks like to the rest of the room, to respond with class and self love, even if that meant I needed to leave the space. So I really feel that what the world actually needs is to see what it looks like in action when somebody's showing up with dark or demonic or, disruptive energy, to show what it looks like to be the change needed. So that's my encouragement to you.
Cosmic, thank you so much for your words and your understanding. There's a lot of experience and knowledge and wisdom in the words and just the resonance in your field. And um, you know, I I've been receiving these sort of visions for a long time, almost my whole life, and uh, and most recently, I started receiving visions that we are amidst a war between a spiritual war between the light and the dark, and in one of the visions, um, I was given or shown this understanding that more and more people would be affected by these dark entities, these dark demons that are entering our plane right now as we speak, and more of them would be possessed, and there would be different levels of possession. So when you talked about your experience of the woman speaking like a man, um, wow, that gave me chills. Um, so yeah, I think that people who are working for the light, I think you're right. I think that these beings, these entities, these creatures, they're able to sense that. They're able to read that in another person's auric field, and so they will send their agents after, and like they will give like little subtle hints, and it's a very delicate thing. It's not like, oh, you're possessed by a demon and you're like, it's not always so obvious. And sometimes it's a very subtle thing where a person is given an intuition, and it feels like it's coming from them, but it steadily increases a little bit more, and it starts to, it's very seductive at first, that demon linking in, and it almost makes you feel good, like it almost makes you feel like you're doing the right thing, but then it turns it on you. The demon will turn it on you, and it's not. And by the time you find out, it's already hooked into you. And so I'm really glad to be here, Cosmic. Thank you for allowing me to be on the stage and just speak. I really hope that at least one person out there is getting something from my presence here today.
Oh, absolutely. Your presence is really important here today. So I'm very grateful that you came on. Wow. So, yes, I want to comment on two things you said that are extremely important. So, yes, one thing is it does feel that these spirits or energies that seem to attach to those that are, that are referred to as narcissists, when those energies or spirits are interacting with someone like yourself, who has a loving, clear presence and aura, they do create sort of a seductive energy. It is very like intriguing, alluring, sort of like how some people say, the devil came as an angel of light, not as some, pitchfork murderer. So it's like it comes in this way that you're like, "Ooh, what's this? This is kind of interesting." Um and a comment on that is I began to realize that I was struggling with projecting my empathy qualities and my willingness to be open hearted and open minded and understand people. Um, I was projecting that quality onto others who might not have that quality. And see, then this creates a false sense of safety and a false sense of trust and intimacy. So then, if you think that other people are showing up with the same energy as you, even if they're not, um, you can actually enable and endanger yourself then. And you mentioned something about like creating a connection or I'm trying to think of the word you said, maybe like a cord or an attachment of some kind. And this
Yeah,
is,
it's a cord.
yes, it's a very important topic that I'm happy you brought forward because I wanted to cover it today. So let's talk about that for a second. So when we interact with people, whether it's a text, phone call, a spaces, even telepathic, and even your thoughts. Have you had it happen where you're thinking of somebody and then they call you or text you? So this field, this quantum field and this metaphysical energy field, um, of thought and spirituality is a type of connection. So when you start interacting with someone, it doesn't matter how small the interaction is, a connection of some kind can be created, even if it's a gentle, a small string or cord. And so it's important that, like, okay, so with this entity that we're referring to as narcissism, it's as if this thing, at this energy has forgotten how to be solar powered, shall we say. It's like this thing, this presence is like, oh my god, I don't know how to produce my own energy, and it wants to latch on to something that does produce its own energy. And like this phenomenon happens in nature too, where there's certain types of vines that don't produce much, uh and so they latch onto a tree and they dig straight into the core of the tree, and it can kill really magnificent, huge, beautiful trees, because it's sucking and vampiring off the tree. And so with regards to these type of relationships, it's like the empathy person may want to help, and they may have a very loving, good intention to help those who seem to like not be able to produce their own energy, or seem to be wanting help, or seem to be, you know whatnot, alluring in some kind of way. And so then you can subconsciously create these energy cords And often you'll feel it. You'll feel around certain people, even at the thought of certain people, it's like energy just is siphoned out of you quickly. You're all of a sudden tired. You all of a sudden just feel whatever. But it's important to cover that you can also have this other experience where you almost feel addicted. You can feel like a high around these people, and they know exactly how to like toss you just the right things to get you to keep producing for them and to get you to feel like seen or heard. They can begin to mirror back to you certain qualities or things that they hear you say matter to you. They can use those words or topics to try to get you to be excited about investing in them. And so these cords or these attachments and agreements that we might make subconsciously or consciously can be removed. It's a spiritual principle. It's like weeding a garden. You can realize, hey, this weed is really pulling down my tomato plant. It's got to go. It's taking the nutrition. It's just destroying the garden. And it doesn't mean that you hate weeds. There's a purpose for weeds. Um, Maybe just not in the garden. And so you can love everyone from wherever they're coming from or whatever they're struggling with without giving them access to your energy field. And this principle of boundaries and removing energy cords is completely legitimate. It's completely scientific even, and it's essential. And often sometimes we have to do it over and over, and then even creating energetic boundaries that you could visualize as like an orb of protection, or maybe even needing to mute someone on social media or block or delete contacts. That's okay. It is loving to do that if you need to do that. um, and especially if the person just doesn't seem to have a grid or like be willing or ready to to stop that behavior. And I feel like a lot of people who end up with this narcissism label, um whatever they're manifesting at the time, is it's very messy and complicated and emotional and spiritual. And it's hard because you can often see like, oh yeah, this person turned out this way because their dad whipped them when they were 2 or whatever. And yeah, but a lot of people turn out a lot of different ways for a lot of different reasons, but we don't all go around like soul harvesting. So you can have compassion for why this phenomenon might have become a stronghold or a issue, without creating an excuse for why you need to let that leech onto your soul. You don't have to. And in fact, it's not loving to do it either. It's more loving to show the person how to produce their own energy and reconnect to source and themselves, because that's the place of true strength and power and love.
Yeah, Cosmic. Again, the way you're so succinct in your delivery of many of these concepts that are often very mysterious because we don't necessarily know exactly how they work, and sometimes we receive them in intuitions. And um, as I mentioned, I've been doing this for a long time. I don't say that to boast. I'm just saying like I've experienced and witnessed a lot, and just as an example of how like okay, here's a good reference point. Okay, like just how on this physical 3D plane we have like mosquitoes, right? And mosquitoes inject into you and they suck your blood. That could be considered a parasite, or ticks or worms that go into your body, right? Like so if when you're on the astral, when you're on the astral plane, there are elementals, there are also parasites. And one type of parasite, what it'll do, it'll like for example, it'll float around like a bar, like where you drink alcohol. And something that'll do it is it'll wait for it'll just wait there. It'll hover above there and just wait for your auric field to drop. Like after you have a drink or whatever, your auric field starts to weaken a little bit, and it'll shoot out like a little cord, and just a cord. And typically it connects to your left side. It might be different for women. It might be different for if you're left-handed or right-handed, and just depends on where you're wired. But it knows where to connect into you and what your weakest point is, and it'll connect in. It'll send you like a sort of boost. Like it'll feel good at first, and and along with that boost, it'll send you another signal that says drink more. Wants you to drink more. It wants you to drink more so that it can connect in deeper. And that's just the sort of bottom rung of a type of astral parasite that exists. And what you were describing in your story earlier, that is a demonic possession, and that's a lot different. Like demonic possessions are very, very, very powerful creatures. When when you're standing in a space, not on the internet, like when you're standing there in a space and there's a demon present, you will feel it. Like you will feel the temperature in the room change. Typically, you will feel like you're in the presence of a predator, and it's a very distinct feeling, and yeah, there's nothing else like it. And again, like I used to, just to credential myself a little bit, like used to have a lot of out of body experiences. I've had thousands of those. I had a Kundalini activation when I was really young, a couple decades ago, and so I've just run through the gamut of these types of things and how to deal with them. And and again, I'm not really I very reluctant to kind of come out and speak about this um, because I mean, any average person, I think, hearing about this will probably be like, "What are you talking about, man?" You know, like they're just kind of they just don't want to accept that this is part of our reality, part of the nature of reality here on the Earth life plane.
I am so grateful that you chose to come on the show today and talk with us because it really feels like an answer to prayer for me. Um, and also, it's important for us, those of us who are having these experiences, to take the courage. I mean, Citizen knows I had to face some heavy energy this morning before the show because it takes a lot of courage if you've survived some really terrifying dark stuff, like I have and like a lot of us have, to come out and talk about it. And I don't feel like I have to have my shit together to talk about stuff because there's something really powerful about the raw energy of just sharing. Even if you don't have it figured out, there's something genuine and beautiful. And I wanted to say that I'm also glad you brought up the alcohol thing because it's really interesting that those are referred to as spirits. And I find it probably no mistake. There's probably a reason it's referred to as spirits. Then again, anything can become a type of, energy addiction or siphon. It, not just alcohol, there's other things that can become, buy more, you need this, it's going to make you feel this way, it's going to solve this thing. Like a lot of things can come off like alcohol does. But I do find it interesting, that a lot of times, um like there's a way to do just about everything in life, that doesn't create an addiction or that's not a type of an escape. But oftentimes those who get sucked into the drinking scene are avoiding something, and they might be more prone to these attachments and to these, like you said, places like bars often have dark energies kind of floating around there, maybe spirits. Who knows what these phenomenon are, but it's definitely a thing. And like, there's this old restaurant down on the plaza, a ways from my house, but where my sister works, and she said that when they close the restaurant down, they have even on footage like paranormal activity happening, uh, when the managers are trying to shut down the place, and lights will come back on or pans will fly across the room, and just really strange stuff happens as a result of different energies that have entered the location, different things that maybe have happened on that property. And so this topic of energies and spirits and all that is very much related to this topic of narcissism, and I feel that this is why um a lot of the material out there is like, run away, there's no cure for this, like. And the thing is, it's not a fringe thing anymore. This phenomenon of people lacking empathy and like needing to be told basic human behavior, respect things, and being willing to harm others or take advantage of others, it's going on in politics, business, religion. People are using, relationships, people are using terms like love and forgiveness or responsibility, and they're using terms like, what's the word? It's something where you're like a go-getter in business. They're using these kind of angles to present that what they're doing is valid because it's a positive quality, and they're just a go-getter and you're misinterpreting their passion. But no, that is not true, because anyone can be um, anyone can pursue anything without doing it at the cost of others or without manipulative intentions, and that's the key. And I want to cover real quick this whole love forgiveness thing, because in a lot of religious and even spiritual settings, these terms are thrown about, and yes, they're wonderful terms, but sometimes people use them to manipulate or to justify things that they're doing. And then they'll be like, "Ah, you're not showing me love. You're not being forgiving." And that's not really the case. So, real quick, I want to touch on this love and forgiveness thing. So, love is the ability to show care to yourself and to others, and to not do it at the cost of yourself or others. So there's this other phenomenon called codependency, and I don't like the title, but let's go there, because I would say, based on the description of that word or terminology, I have struggled with that in my life. And it's been something I've had to really, reflect on and do shadow work for, and like have a lot of self compassion and empathy about how, why did, why is this, or what is this? And in a really brief way, I would say that the term codependency would be someone who is very loving and compassionate and giving, but at the cost of themselves. So they're not being loving, compassionate, and giving to themselves the way they are to others. So then they end up suffering. It's like being willing to rip your heart out for somebody who wants two or three hearts. Like, it's just not healthy. So then that person may struggle with boundaries because they have defined love as something that it's not. See, it's loving to take care of yourself. And in fact, you must take care of yourself first. It's not selfish as long as you're not neglecting your responsibilities to others, say your children. Um, you must, feed yourself and take care of yourself and nurture your soul, because from that place, you will actually be able to give better and more. And you'll be loving others better by loving yourself better. So, just like a reframe on the word love is super important. Also, on the forgiveness thing, yes, you can forgive anyone for anything. That does not justify it at all. It never will justify anything. But forgiveness is more of a sense of releasing or letting go of the energy that's attached to you from the event. So you're not going to define yourself based off of what happened. You're not going to identify yourself with what that person did to you. You're releasing the the energy around the event. You're not saying it was okay. And also, forgiveness doesn't mean you have to have that person back in your life. You can forgive and completely love somebody and need to block them, and it's okay. It's a completely different energy. And real quick, I want to touch on healing, because the word anger is right up there with these words. It needs to be talked about because anger is an essential, very healthy, and I will say high vibration energy when it is experienced and felt in a healthy, pure, genuine, honest way. So, anger that I'm talking about, that's healing anger, is the anger that's honest. It's the anger that's willing to protect someone who's being harmed. It's the it's the knowing in your soul and in your core that this thing is not okay, and it never will be. But it's not a thing where you harm yourself or you harm others. That type of anger that hurts yourself or hurts others, that can be damaging and dangerous. But to feel anger, to scream in a pillow, to maybe, I don't know, break some pencils or do things that don't harm yourself or others, like that type of anger is very healthy. It's in all of the healing models that are discussed in psychology and healing materials. It's not something to avoid. It's not low vibration. It's not 3D, the type I'm talking about. So, defining terms such as love, anger, and forgiveness in a way that's not going to be used to justify or enable toxicity or manipulation is key. So I'm glad that we went there. Citizen, do you have anything to say, or
Yeah,
shall we
yeah.
move along?
Let me. I like anger to me is a sort of jumping off point. It's almost like a fuel. Like it gets you from one place to another. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. And what you said about what you said about reframing love and forgiveness. I think it's really important to reframe it back into yourself, you know. And I think you nailed it in many aspects. You nailed it. You said, you know, to have these concepts used against you is the ultimate betrayal. And oftentimes, people who are stuck in these types of loops are people who are unable to give this concept of love into themselves. So I really just we've talked. I feel like we've laid a foundation of what this is, you know, in a general way, and I'd really like to talk about some solutions if you guys don't mind. And you know, these are in my experience. You can use them or not. You can try them if you resonate with them. Something that you can do if you wake up feeling a certain way where you don't feel connected that day. The first thing you can do is just go outside and with your bare feet, just put your feet on the ground into the earth and really feel your connection grounded to the earth, but you know, you can also bring like a towel with you and put it like on the grass somewhere and just sit down and close your eyes and allow the light of the sun to hit your face. And with your eyes closed, feel the light of the sun enter like your closed eyelids, like right there. And also feel it connect to your third eye. And when you feel it connect to your third eye, connect back to it, like because the sun is a very powerful cosmic source. I don't think I don't think in modern terms we truly understand the significance and the power of sun. And if you whether you believe in God or not, I think it really is a sort of direct link and connection to God. And so if you can be in that moment with your eyes closed and your third eye open, and you can think about God in however you do, it's a very important moment in those stages. So there's a lot of other things that I've learned. You can use since we're on the concept of God, these beings seem to be incredibly uh responsive to the name Jesus Christ. And it's really interesting the way it works. I'm not a very religious person. I would say I'm a spiritual person, um, but when you say this name, in the name of Jesus Christ, these beings get very scared. And it's as if the resonance of this name alone, it carries a power. And so I would recommend to use this name, whether you believe in it or not. It's very powerful. Just one more, if you guys don't mind. There's a there's a good friend of mine. His name is Robert Bruce. He wrote a book. He wrote many books, but he wrote a book on astral dynamics, and he wrote also a book called a practical guide to psychic self-defense. And one thing like he and I would talk about is when you're in this state of a psychic attack, or like any kind of attack, or you're feeling like even if you feel like a sort of attachment is like pinging your field or getting close to you, a perfect way to end this right away is simply to go into your shower, turn your shower on, let the water, whatever temperature you like, hit your body, and as you do that, you just imagine, the shower being created by golden light, and you just feel that wash over you. And the reason this works is, in theory, that Earth is highly active as an electrical grid, and these beings, they use this grid. I mean, there's more lightning strikes all across the planet than and so we think that these beings use this grid system to manipulate energy, and to also to travel to certain points. Involves the ley lines as well, but in short, just a shower will end that encounter for at least a brief moment.
Wow, I am really grateful for all these things you touched upon. Thank you. So, uh, I love that you brought up earthing and grounding and putting your feet in the soil and soaking in the sun, because it is a type of a vortex healing, and you can connect to the heart of the earth and to the heavens, and the sun is very healing and a much needed thing for people who are indoors a lot and around artificial light. So that's a very important practice, and I like to do meditations and visualizations and heart brain synchronizing at the same time. And I'll touch on this really quickly because it's added to the tools you mentioned for solutions. So, with heart brain synchronicity, I learned this from Greg Braden, who I absolutely love, an incredible, wonderful scientist of, I just can't say enough good things about him. Um, so basically, you just place your hand on your heart, and nose breathing is best for us. And you just softly breathe for 3 minutes. Um, you only have to do it 3 minutes to get 6 hours of benefit. You can do it longer if you like. And basically, you just enter a calm and peaceful state of gratitude. You just allow any thoughts or feelings related to things you're grateful for to flow through your mind, or even if nothingness is floating through your mind, whatever it is, wherever you get into your calm place. But for 3 minutes, you just focus on gratitude. It could be gratitude for the sun shining on your face while you're earthing, and that's it. And what it does is it causes your heart and your brain to go into this gamma wave, which is the healing wave of the dolphins and the whales in the ocean. And it's profoundly healing. It helps your body reset, spirit, soul, and body. So this is another tool that can be added to the sunning and grounding you mentioned. And then also on the topic of the name Jesus or Yeshua, this is an interesting phenomenon because I've noticed that if a collective has created a general energy or consensus of belief, and how do I say? Let's just say this. In general, when people say Jesus or they're referring to him, they're referring to somebody who was loving kind, respectful, powerful, someone who empowered others to heal themselves, to know themselves, to be connected to source, to transcend time and space, to access the quantum fields, to work with energy, to eat fish and walk through a wall on the same day, to defeat death, to have the phoenix experience, to not be defined by your bloodline, to create spiritual family, to not say, so I'm really glad you went here. Like, man, you were supposed to be on this show. But I did want to talk about this whole thing of family because oftentimes this narcissist or spiritual, uh, energy siphon situation can happen in family of origin. And it can be subtle, it can be overt, covert, what have you. But what's difficult is that if somebody that you're related to by blood has this spirit or this dynamic of narcissism going on with you, you might feel trapped, or you might feel like this loyalty to them because of blood. But even Jesus said when he was in the temple and they said, Jesus, your mother and your brothers and sisters are looking for you. And he said, who are my mother and brothers and sisters? But my mother, brother, and sisters are those who do the will of the Creator. And that's the key, is that, yes, there at some level we have chosen, probably pre-incarnation, to be with the family of origin we're in, but it's not likely because there are, soul spiritual tribe family. It's likely for some other reason, some other type of um spiritual mission or realizations or learnings that need to take place in everybody's life. But it's important that we all realize that it's essential to seek out people who are safe and spiritually compatible for your family and friends. Yes, you can add them to your family of origin in your heart, but it's not like you have to like totally get rid of your family of origin, but in some cases you may need to. And I will say that in my specific scenario, there's some in-laws that were targeting me with dark energy, and it was almost the death of me on more than one occasion, literally. Dark energy, even at a subconscious level, can be directed at someone as a spirit of jealousy, a spirit of, you know, insecurity. I'm not here to like fully um prove all of that, but somehow this dark energy can be directed at people, and it can near kill them. And so it's very important to practice spiritual and energetic boundaries, especially if you're an empath, um, because you can become sick physically by allowing just anybody to have access to your phone number or the ability to contact you. And so it's not really a it's not really a light topic. It's actually really important for us to be aware. And so one more thing on the Jesus topic is, I think, because the collective has agreed that this being demonstrated these powerful examples of love and boundaries in family, spiritual family. I think that's why he was targeted. And I also feel that that's why he spoke in parables, and that's why he made furniture for most of his life and kept it on the down low, because you gotta be wise. Not saying, go hide and make furniture in a cave, but you gotta be wise, and you gotta understand spiritual dynamics like this, because um, the idea of targeted individuals is very much a thing. And it can happen in families with people who on the outside appear to be very kind and thoughtful, or just the average person or whatnot. They don't seem to be some like weird satanic, you know dark lord or something. They might appear to be just common good old people, but they common good old people can struggle with energies and entities that can really harm others. And I think that because it can hide so in plain sight, that sometimes people don't realize how dangerous this stuff can get.
Yeah, thank you, Cosmic, for sharing all that. As you're talking, this sort of analogy is forming in my mind, and I'm curious what you think about it. Narcissism is Google. And what I mean by that is um, when you open up like on my computer, I open up a tab and I search for something. I think I'm searching the internet, but really I'm going through a company that's searching the internet for me. They're curating the information that I get to see. And it's almost like that with narcissism. It's like all of us have this natural connection to infinite knowledge, infinite awareness, source creator, however you want to call that. And it's like instead of tapping in, let's say like someone like Jesus did, people like him, it's like you're installing this gatekeeper for you that's going to curate what comes into your awareness. And so when you make a deal with a narcissistic entity, let's say someone is quote unquote narcissistic, it's like they've established an arrangement with a corporation in their mind to give them information. And three, like I am really happy you're in the space, like Cosmic is saying, because you're bringing up so much interesting stuff. The fact that they feed you a little bit of, I don't know, dopamine or some sort of positive stimulus, it's true. It's like, gosh, so many things to say. It's like I think there's a high proclivity or proportion of narcissistic people in the spiritual world, because you make one of these arrangements, you set up a corporation of Google in your mind to give you information. It's like, wow, look at me, look at all this stuff that I'm coming up with. I feel so good. Everyone else should feel this way. Maybe I'm Archangel Michael or something. Like maybe this is all true. But the reason these, let's say Google or these entities are so scared of someone like Jesus is because they say, we don't need you. Get out of my mind. I'm not making this bargain with you to do this. You're irrelevant here. And if anything, it's just nastily harmful. So just an analogy to throw out there. Curious what you think.
Yeah, I'm really glad you went here. Because even in the stories that were given, supposedly Satan and Jesus have this conversation on a mountaintop. And Satan's like, look at all this land. It's mine. You could have it. Let's strike a deal. What about this or that? Do you want this or that? And they're like a lot of 3D, 4D kind of spiritual objects that he's offering. And Jesus was being tested, about making this trade or creating this connection or this agreement. And it is interesting, the whole Google thing too, because and by the way, Jesus resisted and said, get away from me. So boundaries, not like, oh, do you need a hug, Satan? Did you have a really mean family of origin? Let's sit down and talk. It's not like that. It's because he was talking to the spirit in front of this Satan person, being, or whatever. So like the Google analogy, it is like that. It's like a mask. It's like an energy field in front of the person's energy field. And that energy field that we're calling narcissism, or this spirit field, uh it does seem to give them something. It gives them ideas. It shows them who would be a good supply to go towards. It does show them insights about the person that they might be going to for a supply. Um, and so then sometimes what happens is the person who is selected as, hey, this would be a good one to latch onto, then the spirit the narcissist spirit attached to that other person might know things about the empath, let's just say in this example, and might say things. And then the empath is like, oh my God, I finally feel seen and heard. This is interesting. Nobody's perfect, you know, and then you like tell yourself this stuff. Or they'll tell you, no one's perfect. Don't judge me. That's not like you. I mean, the level of psychological mind fuck that can happen in these dynamics, it is of a whole other proportion than anything I would qualify as normal. It is so strangely interesting because it feels deeper. It feels like an interesting connection that you sort of want to explore out of curiosity, and you sort of wonder if, you know, like if you're meant to. Um, but yeah, I like this analogy of the Google thing because I do think that you end up interacting through the mask of the narcissism. And no matter why the person has developed this mask as a way of showing up, it doesn't mean that it's okay. It it could be explained. Like, for example, I've seen I've seen and heard stories of criminals who do really terrible things, and then you hear their backstory and you're like, oh, no wonder he does that. Oh my God, that sucks that he went through this. But it's never a justification. It's like this might explain the psychology of someone who does these behaviors, but it's not the proper response. That person needs deep inner healing so that they don't become a predator themselves. Um, so yeah, and it is really interesting too when you're interacting with somebody who has these spirits, because the level of psychological and spiritual word salad that is produced in these conversations can leave you feeling like, what in the hell is happening? And they often like to use words such as the love, forgiveness, and all this and that to cause you to doubt your true self. So good points that you brought up there.
Yeah, and then just real quick to add on that, the other thing with utilizing a search engine, letting a corporation decide what you get to see is they can censor things. And I think in this instance, if we were to settle on, let's say, a definition of narcissism, it's like their empathy has been censored. And so most people, when they make a decision, by most people, I mean, maybe we could define what that means. 80%, so 20% of people have some sort of narcissistic entity attachment. I don't know. But most people use empathy as part of their decision making or their search process. What information do I want to bring in and channel through my being? And a part of that filtration process is utilizing empathy. And it's like when someone makes this bargain, it's censored. They no longer have access to that. And it's very interesting to me when I started kind of studying the 3D narcissistic behavior, is that it converges on so many of the same types of behavior. It's like when you remove the ability to process things with empathy, narcissistic people will naturally exhibit the same types of behavior. And it's not like they all got together and decided this is how we're going to do it. It's just like you feel like the only way to get your needs met is to manipulate someone, and you can't be genuine. And it just sort of leads to all this same type of behavior. And so yeah, it's like that love and light type of response, very damaging, very something to be aware of. And three, just to kind of go back to what you're saying before, I completely agree with Cosmic in that, if you wanted to get off Twitter, no problem, do what you feel like you got to do. I'm the type of person maybe that's like put up boundaries and recognize what the behavior is, and keep going. When you speak, it's powerful and it's important. My personal advice is keep going and keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I
So
completely agree.
I appreciate it, Cosmic. I appreciate it too. Yeah, thank you for your words, and I really appreciate just being here. And like I said, if this can help one person, then I feel like then I've done something helpful for the day at least. And I'll really consider it. So I just want to just shift a little bit, and talk about the nature of this, right? So when you look at a parasitic connection, um, the parasite, it feeds off of its host. If the host dies, the parasite loses its ability to live. It needs you. It requires you to survive. So there's many ways to understand this. It essentially means that you have more power over this thing that's attached to you. And I mean, there are ways to sort of freeze it out. And um, one thing you can start doing is stop drinking alcohol. That's probably there's a reason that there's a liquor store on every corner. And if you say you're on the path, then it's time to walk the path. And like I said, we are in the middle of a spiritual war, versus light and dark. And I don't think it's enough to just sit idly by anymore and observe anymore, or just talk anymore. It's time for action. And so I'm not judging anyone for your choices. If you want to drink, that's your life. It's your choice. Um, and we really need to, in my experience, in my opinion, we really need to have a maintenance protocol for our minds. And the way that you can do this is through meditation. And it surprises me sometimes. I mean, maybe it doesn't. With social media, with attention spans decreasing so much, so many people say, I just can't sit down for 10 minutes. They come to me and they're like, I just can't do it. And you know, it, it's not really that complicated. Uh, so all you have to do is just take a seat, put your devices away, you put your phone on silent, and just sit down. And there's no mental magic at first. Just kind of be there. Just kind of be there. And if you can, just observe. Just go into a state in your mind where you're not reacting to your thoughts. You're just kind of observing them. Like, you can imagine yourself kind of standing at the back of your mind, just observing the thoughts kind of going by, and without letting yourself attach to any specific one. And if you get caught up in a thought, it's not a big deal. Just, restart, like go back to the back of your mind and restart. It's okay. And you can start this process. If you can't just get there, you can just start by just focusing on your breath. Just focus on your breathing, and just try to relax your body and your muscles and your shoulders, and just be there for 10 minutes. If you can go longer, then great. Um So, Cosmic, I'll hand it over to you. I see your hands up. I'm not sure how much longer I have to stay, but this has been really an honor. Thank you for letting me come up and speak. And I just wanted to also say, like, I might take a break, but anyone who follows me from this space, I will approve that, and so that you guys can check out some of my. I do have recordings of my guided work, and they're really powerful. So. Thank you so much, Cosmic, for everything.
Thank you. I'm so proud of you, and the work you're doing is incredibly important. And the Maharishi effect research showed how meditation can literally lower crime. Literally lower crime. Do you realize how powerful this is? We can change the world by stopping and taking a few minutes to do exactly what you just said. It's one of those things like, how can you not? It's not that you don't have time. Like, and the thing is, a lot of people say that they want to make a difference in the world, or they want to have a fulfilling life. And it's sort of a little bit like the topic of exercise, although something I need to work on in my life. But uh people say, like, I don't have time for exercise. Well, just 5-10 minutes is better than zero, because the interesting thing about exercise and eating well and being hydrated with purified water and the stuff you mentioned earlier, is that it gives you energy, and then you can get your work done in half the time. How could you not want that? And like the exercise I explained about heart brain synchronization is incredibly scientific, immense benefits for your body, soul, and spirit. And then if you expand on that and you begin to visualize that your presence brings a feeling of love and peace into the world, and you begin to visualize different parts of the world um, finding peace or finding solutions or growing organic gardens or creating sustainable communities, and you start to visualize the solutions to what's going on in the world, uh, you'll be surprised. You'll begin to see in the third dimension that the things that you visualized can come to pass. The fact that this has been documented over and over again, that meditation and visualization can create spontaneous healings and lower crime, I just feel is worthy of like a massive pause and reflect. Like, how could we not do this? It is the safest way to lower crime in the world. It will be immensely more effective than any poster you could ever create and stand on a corner with. I mean, I can't support enough. I fully support what you're doing is what I'm trying to say, and I hope that more of us get on board with it and enter in and realize that what I love about the Kaizen philosophy is that it's the little tiny things that are the most effective. So whatever it is that you feel stuck on, only do 1 minute of the solution a day and just see how you feel. If you're struggling with exercise, do 1 minute of jumping jacks during a commercial break if you're into shows. 1 minute of jumping jacks. That's it. If you're struggling with meditation, stand in the grass for 1 minute with your coffee every morning in the sunshine and just think about that you're grateful to be alive. 1 minute. I challenge everybody to do this. Little tiny things are the most effective and lasting. So I can't thank you enough for being on the show. Super grateful. I hope you come on again. You're welcome anytime, and you are making a difference. So thank you.
Can I throw out an analogy before you go, Three? You can tell me what you think.
Yeah, sure, man.
I promise Cosmic one Lord of the Rings and one Matrix analogy. So, you know the scene in the yeah, the scene in the Matrix where he's running through that apartment and there's some old grandma looking lady. He sees her and then he turns around and it's Smith throwing a knife at him.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like when you say spiritual war, it reminded me of it because it's a lot of people frame it that way. And I think that's fine. But you know, it's a never ending war. And the way I would kind of boil it down to is like when you're talking to that woman in her kitchen, you're talking to that woman. But as soon as it becomes Agent Smith, that it's no longer Susan or whatever. She's gone. Now you're dealing with that entity or that presence. Your war is now with Agent Smith, and that's a different category of opponent, let's say. And so to me, the idea of meditation is if you're plugged into the matrix, you can always be taken over by an agent. Like your mind is always vulnerable to letting in one of the agents into your mind and having that direct your behavior. And I think a lot of people don't even realize it. They don't realize that they're being influenced. We're all being influenced all the time. And so you have to pick your influences. And if you're not aware of who's knocking on your door and who you're letting in, you're prone to being, you're plugged into the matrix and you're prone to that. So all the things you're saying about, the take just a few minutes and the breath and all that stuff, I agree with. I'm just saying maybe big picture way of thinking about it is your mind is your own. And if you don't take full sovereignty and control over it, it can be someone else's plaything.
Yes, sir. Yeah, man. I love it, man. That's such a classic analogy and such a classic movie too. And yeah, you're spot on. I'm so glad that you brought that up. It's very true, man. And sometimes it can be very tricky because you kind of you want the person that that was once there to be there, and you want to help them even, but it begins to tear you up, and it begins to work against you. And like Cosmic mentioned earlier, the feeling that it leaves you with when you're impacted by one of these beings or entities, like it's a state of confusion, it's a state of shock. It's like, what just happened? Like, what was that? And it's almost gutting it, because it rips this. You store in the dantian, in the Chinese system of energy, like you store this energy here in your stomach, right? So when this happens, it feels like you're getting gutted, because it's pulling that energy out of you, and it's pulling this core energy out of you, and you feel drained. You're drained. You don't know why. What's happened? And that's part of the illusion. That's part of the trick. That's part of how it works. And it's like, like kind of like the dopamine hit when it starts to attach. It works in a similar way when it's in a form of attack, meaning it paralyzes and confuses its victim. And so, in the same way, you have to be very careful and guarded about where your energy is going, what you're doing with it, who you're around. I think this is the most important thing: who you're around, because there's an old saying or quote, like it's like you become the average of the five closest people around you, right? And so if you're around people who drink all the time or whatever, you're gonna eventually, no matter how long, you're gonna eventually probably want to drink, and you might yeah, you might drink. And so just pick. It's not. This is not. This is not a game. It's not a joke. It's very serious, and it's up to us. And I think anyone that's in this space, I mean, you're here because either this has impacted your life in some way, or you're looking for answers, or maybe you're just curious. But we need to stand together, because we are the light warriors. We are the beings that are shifting the Earth's frequency forward. And it's a very important time in human history, especially after everything we've been through in the last 2, 3 years. So, I implore you, if you've made it to this point in either the recording or here in the space now, I wish you the best of luck. If anyone isn't following me already, you'd like to check out the meditations, like I said, just go for it. Blessings to everyone. Thank you so much, Cosmic. Thank you so much, Citizen. I really appreciate you both.
You're welcome. Thank you. Wow. So grateful. Yes. I hope everybody does follow you and join your meditations to make this a better world. And one final note before you go, it's really important for us to know, as those who are, well, he left, but oh, there he is. It's really important to realize that even if we're the minority, those of us who are being really proactive about making a difference and doing our shadow work and showing up with solutions and all that, even if we were the minority, do you realize that as you're practicing the dimensions of love in your daily life and with others, you actually hold the energetic power of thousands, thousands, which means that a very small handful of people can literally shift around the entire matrix. And I do believe this is why in a lot of superhero movies like Marvel and Matrix and everything, why it seems like there's only a small handful of good guys and they end up winning, is because the energy that they're coming with is infinitely more powerful. It's like coming in with a wizard wand with someone who has like a rubber band gun. It's a fucking joke, but the thing is, people forget how powerful they are when they're in the upper dimensions of love and genuine peacefulness. they forget that they can win the whole war. It's an incredible thing to just remember that in the small powerful things is greatness. Okay, how about Nisor?
Nizer, thank you. I don't know how I found this space. I just popped in. But thank you for doing something like this. You're the co-host and the three guy. Lot of great information sharing. I'd like to touch on a couple things that weren't spoken on yet that could connect with the topic and the conversation. And uh, the acacia is commonly known as a place of records, but it's not just knowledge and experience. It's the energy that's been passed down through all of humanity that some people can connect with knowledgeably, that we're all connected with, regardless if we understand it or not. And I believe that this is synonymous with like the source of energy, and that's where you know the conflict really begins at the step of choice and how we develop from there. And humanity has been oppressed for several generations now, and a lot of this knowledge has been withheld or literally, killed away. And the biggest piece I notice people missing is the fact that there are hereditary entities that attach to family lines that I have seen with my own eyes develop at the age of maturity into full blown chaos machines living inside of people that they don't understand because they don't have this information. They don't know if it's hormones or just regular development, but what they're doing is they're harvesting these energies throughout generations because they're not attended to. And I think that the knowledge of love and light is the key. If you're genuinely a good person doing positive things in the world, and that naturally fights these things that attach through hereditary lines. But what it really takes is somebody knowledgeable and willing to sacrifice themselves for all past and hopefully future generations. And I think this is one of the Jesus metaphors that's touched on, is because that's really what it takes to be able to combat your own hereditary entities, to be clear, to be able to help and guide others to be able to do the same. And a very important piece that people miss, when you start becoming aware of different energies, and that can potentially lead to being able to overcome these things that feed off of all of us. We naturally become attacked, whether we understand that or not. And shields are very, very important, and a lot of good teachings through chakra work and kundalini. And there's different aspects of ceremonial magic where you have different power centers that you can generate shields from. uh, go ahead, Cosmic.
Oh, I'm just really grateful you're bringing up this generational tree stuff, this DNA genealogy stuff, because, this whole thing of like generational curses that's talked about in some manuscripts. And, there's like people say, like, there's these elite bloodlines or whatnot. Well, why are they? Why are they obsessed with bloodlines? Why are they obsessed with altering genetics? I think you're onto something there. And I like that you're getting into possible ways to heal or cleanse a bloodline or the DNA genetics, because this is really interesting. I'm certified in emotion and body code healings through Dr. Bradley Nelson, and this is one of the things that's covered in the healings, is that some diseases and entities and energies, trapped energies, are inherited. And so then the inherited trapped energies are, you can do some different types of prayer and magnetic energy reset practices to help with this topic, but those require like more more energy resets, because it's like the memories of it's like the energies and memories of the ancestors. It's like your DNA is a scroll of these different experiences and memories. And this also explains why some people have like intense phobias or unexplained thoughts or feelings or desires or confusions about their identity, is because their genetics have been altered or in some way passed down information. So some people are having their genetics altered by um, so-called medication and whatnot. But then there's also the genetic passed down thing, which you're talking about. This is very important. I'm glad you brought this up. So go ahead if there's anything else on how to clear the DNA and the bloodline that you're familiar with.
Will do, and thank you. A lot of information and knowledge I've received is direct. I'm just a guy. I'm self-aware, self-taught. I never worked with any groups or certifications of any kind, but I have been able to find my own balance, my own way to identify these things and fight and help others fight. And it's very well said in books of Toltec wisdom, the Castaneda books, and uh, Don Miguel Ruiz wrote the Four Agreements, which is also based on the same uh, set of principles and knowledge. And it's a way to focus your energy, your entire luminous being. When they say with every fiber of your being, they take that very literally. In fact, and they only make 4 agreements to the universe that tether themselves, so they're free to use the energy they can move in and their own personal power for other feats. And once you, I love what the guy said about the grounding and connecting with the ground and the sky at the same time, because just letting that light of the universe come in and soak in on you, and to be able to like send it back into the earth is like just the conduit, is probably one of the most cleansing, healing things you can do. And you just stretch that. It's like a big orb bubble, and you literally stretch that to infinity, and that's how you start to cleanse things beyond your physical reach. It's you take that healing and cleansing energy when you're in those moments separate from everything else, and you just send it back to the source. And once you connect like that, it's like breathing with the universe. And people experience it differently. I've seen the universe blink in and out while I'm doing that with each breath, and I'm just taking all the light and the positive I can find, all the healing, the motivation, and channel that literally into infinity, into see your DNA strands and how each piece is connected with all the blades of grass around you, and use that light and be the conduit for the light, because just a small spark in the darkness lights it all up. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow, that was amazing. Alien light.
Oh, yes. Hello. Thank you. Can you hear me? Come on.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Uh, please, I don't want to sound or offend anybody with what I'm about to talk about, because I'm a victim of it myself. So it's not about anybody more than myself, but being self-aware of how much really this consciousness is of reality. And that is that we're programmed to just listening to stories. This is all we're doing, and this is all we're really about. It's about listening to stories, a lot of information, and what? Nothing changes. And I'm conscious of this because I am telling the world about change that you can have evidence of, and that's another thing that means nothing anymore, because we are so programmed to listening to stories that we will. I see it now. I see that there's no even people that claim to talk about consciousness, to have a clue of the fundamental sources of true consciousness that exists on and that we're interacting with. We haven't a clue. So we can't really, but even to understand a new discovery that you can have evidence of, people are not, can't even understand that. They will still talk about stories, still going, well, we're programmed, well, we can go meditation, we can do this. What changed? What's happening here? And I can explain why we are myself, so hardwired into only telling and listening to stories. It happened from you were born. You watch TVs, you're listening to stories. We listen to our parents. We're programmed to only listening to stories of the past, nothing of the future. God forbid. The people that I talk to, when I try to talk about something that is existing, alien beings that are piercing through you right now, and you can capture yourself, not me, anyone that has the interest not to be captured in the old story world. But you know what? I'm ignored. You don't want to go, nobody wants to do anything in the future right now. We rather listen to stories. And this is all I really have to say. I'm going to leave, but I'm very conscious of why we are so addicted to space talk stories. We're talking stories in the past. I'm trying to say, have evidence of something of consciousness that nobody that I know I'm listening to right now has a clue what I'm talking about. So I understand that. But reality, right now, consciousness, what can we do? What can you have evidence? Not that. Evidence right now, right this moment, if you care to step outside of the storytelling and do yourself so you could see these invisible beings. But most people will not. All of them will not. You will go back to stories just like I do. But I'm consciously aware, and I'm trying to bring my consciousness out of the world of storytelling, because this is what space is all about. It's all storytelling, and it'll never come out of that. I see it. People will be telling old stories until the end of time. The ice will melt, you'll be flooded, and you'll be talking about the same old things, And thank you guys, and have a good day, all right?
Oh, before you go, I think you brought up some good points there. And a lot of people do get addicted to stories, and that's it can be a way that people escape or make excuses for not coming up with the solutions. So have you found some solutions that help people out of the story into the practical help?
Ma'am, there is no solution. There is only evidence that you can personally participate that will help you see the evidence of evolution. And this is what we're offering. If I'm telling you something, it's just another story. I'm offering evidence of the invisible particle beings that we're submerged in. But people don't want to do that. They rather listen to stories,
So let's say that I believe you, because I do.
You don't have to believe me. This is evidence. There are other people
Okay.
capturing these identical beings with your cell phone. This is not complicated. You can do it but people are addicted to the space, not only spaces, because it's everywhere. Everywhere we're programmed. You watch TV. What are they telling us? They're telling us stories. We've been
Exactly. I agree with you. So
listen to your parents. Listen to everybody. But do you listen to the sun? Do you listen to the cosmic universe in a vibrational magnetic field way? Do you really know what magnetism is? Do you know really, really the fundamental dynamics of internal magnetism? And how the vast vacuum of light signaling that is occurring within you at the billion per second signaling of consciousness, that without your organs gone, no more? Do we understand that kind of? No, we'd rather just talk about consciousness, but in the abstract of, well, I don't know if that one is. There's so much information that we can interact with, but it is very simple because the universe is simple. But we are so hardwired into back to that again. And this is, I know as soon as I leave, everyone that's listening, and especially people that have heard me before, if you don't understand alien light, then you are hardwired for stories until the end of time. I am giving you evidence. I'm not telling you stories. I can tell you how to internally magnetize your body. I've been saying it. Sea salt, lemon, distilled water, pH, potential hydrogen magnetism. Water is magnetic, needs to be activated by sunlight. This is the only source of our creation that we have ever been connected to, which is the true signal of our being. Sunlight.
Wow, thank you so much. That's
Yeah, I
exactly
know
what I
you
was
have more
hoping you would
important
share.
things to do. We're going to go back to talking. So, I don't want to take up too much time because I know that what I just told you, it's not going to fall in. We're all going to go back to telling old stories. Nothing changed. They don't. Either one thing. Either somebody in the government's going to come and take me out, or someone will finally understand what I'm saying, and they'll elevate this to another level where it's not beyond the talk space and evidence, because that's what I'm about. Alien Light has the evidence. If you want it, you come to my channel or whenever I have a space talk, which I really don't, because I don't particularly like this kind of crowd. So I don't like talking all stories. Have a good day, guys.
You too, take care. I'm grateful that you came in and shared. Thank you so much. So, Empress Samantha,
Hi, Rim. Can you hear me? I'm in the car.
sorry,
Hello.
yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good. I'm picking my kid. I had jumped in the spaces, and by the time I was even talking. But yeah, I was attracted to your room because I saw the narcissism and dark entities and energy vampires, and I've been talking about that a lot over this past year. So this year has been interesting for me. I found out early on. Well, I actually just left a 7-year relationship with a narcissist. We had 3 children together, and that was really my first. That was my first experience realizing what narcissism was. But then once I saw the traits, because I was watching IDTV, I saw that my realized my mother is one as well. As much as I love her, she also has. She's one as well. So I've been around it my whole life, didn't realize it, and I think that's very common for empaths, which I am. We tend to attract narcissists because, like, someone I think 3 was saying, they need our inner. Oh, you may have been saying cosmic, and thank you for letting me speak. But I think you were saying that they need our energy, and so that's why they seek us out for sure. I thought it was definitely interesting to hear someone explain, like there's a negative entity that's kind of like a mask over the actual person, I guess, and that was interesting to me because I do you to me my narcissist it's actually been confirmed he was a soulmate and it felt like a soulmate from the beginning, but then it's like he signed a deal with the devil, and he kind of changed drastically, and I got that confirmed. I called a psychic, and they did confirm that because I could feel it as an empath. I could feel the energy shift and just everything how it changed. And so I left him last year and found out this year. So I actually ended up talking to another narcissist, then another one. And I found out earlier this year that I'm actually a twin, part of a twin flame connection. So then I went on this spiritual ascension journey, and that just propelled me to like look at everything over. Well, I kind of fell into this whole like experience that I didn't even know people were really doing in real life. So like as far as energy vampires, dark entities, all of that. Like I've always known I was different. I always saw like shadowy figures, but I didn't know. I would just blow it off. I would be like, okay, I think I'm just seeing things, or maybe it was a coat hanging up or something. That coat right there. I would try to play it off, and I just found out like I really am seeing like lost souls walking around. So it's been an interesting journey, and I was just happy to have this space to try to just maybe I can help others who are dealing with narcissism. I feel like at this point I'm a pro at dealing with them, cleansing my energy, protecting my energy. I'm getting better at that. And you don't really have to. I feel like once you meditate, I love meditation. So I was also loving what 3 was talking. I love Citizens analogy with Matrix, but it's like absolute. That was actually my absolute favorite movie from the '90s before I even knew that I was a spiritual being or learned all the stuff I learned this year. But um, But yeah, The Matrix is like was like my absolute favorite movie, and I actually go back to that a lot to try to understand the journey that the spiritual ascension journey that I'm on now, as far as like with the Oracle, because I'm like, she just look like a regular person. So I used to think like, how? Oh, it's fine, it's fine. I'm like, how am I this divine being? I'm just a regular person, you know. So it's been like this long. That movie really helped me. I guess make sense of it. Someone was saying something earlier, and I love Eckhart Tolle. There's a man. I think his YouTube channel is called New World Star, and he actually told me about Eckhart Tolle. So I signed up for his courses, and he's usually helping twin flames deal with the twin flame journey because it's like really difficult. And so he introduced us to Eckhart Tolle. And so some of the references they were saying, as far as like observing your emotion, not really falling right into that emotion, just observing like what you're feeling, and and just recognizing it and maybe finding solutions for that. So the other one had a phone. Somebody's walking him down the hall. Have a seat, Elijah. Okay, sorry on the phone. Take your book back off seat. Strapped in. Okay. But yeah, now listen, let's look at the teacher wanted to talk to me, but he went away. Sorry about that, guys. So, I mean, I just have a lot of knowledge. It's a little bit overwhelming, but I am finding that I'm going to channel it into like holistic wellness. I'm actually starting a course like very soon, like within probably the next few days, to become a Reiki master. But this was like just very timely. I really appreciate you having this space. Usually I would not come into spaces because I would be nervous about dark energy and that just kind of coming into me. But I'm realizing the more I'm meditating, the more protected my energy is becoming. Like I can come into rooms like this and not be worried about being affected by negative energies that are around us. And so that's something I definitely want to help others with, as well as just helping out with mental health.
Wow, I'm so glad you came on and shared. And several things you said are really profound. Like, yes, number one, it is so essential to do the meditation and energy protection because there are different dark energies in the world and in spaces and everywhere we go that we can protect ourselves from. I used to have a hard time getting out of my house much because I was absorbing so much. I didn't realize I was an empath. I didn't know how to protect myself. I didn't understand boundaries on the 3D or the other dimensions, spiritual boundaries. It took me a long, hard path of learning, and I wanted to save that. I think interacting with narcissists slash dark energies spirits is a type of initiation. And I think that some of us people who get into doing energy healing work, like yourself and myself, I think sometimes we sign up for this initiation because we need to have some firsthand experience with the way it works and how dangerous it can be and how complicated it can be, especially if you have children with them, because children make everything. It's oh man, when you have children with a narcissist, there's a whole other level of things going on because then you're concerned about the safety, the physical and spiritual and emotional safety and well-being of your children. And so you might stay for that reason. And I want to say also that sometimes the narcissist person will create a scenario in the relationship where the other person depends on them and maybe isn't able to get a job, or certain things happen with the finances to where it makes it very, very maybe even dangerous or difficult or near impossible for them to keep their kids safe and find a way to escape. And it is a strategy. I don't know that the narcissist would consciously realize they're doing it, but it is a very common pattern. It's so common that it's very well documented in the material that's now available to help people in this toxic relationship dynamic. But because of that, it isn't actually always safe or good to leave the narcissist immediately, because sometimes the person needs to create a game plan What will I do? How will I do this? What's the most effective way to leave? What's the safest way for me and my children to leave? What's going to be the least traumatic? And to have to think through all these dynamics is very important. And the safety of yourself and of your children is incredibly important. And some people think like, oh, it's so, you know, it's your fault if you're in a toxic relationship, you can just leave. And they don't realize the level of psychological, energetic, and spiritual warfare is unfucking believable. It is a whole other thing. It is not at all even remotely similar to just the regular stressors that people have with their baby's daddy. It is not at all even slightly the same. So the thing is, it's very hard for a lot of people who get in this dynamic, especially before they realize what's going on, or also the bait and switch thing where this person behaves really great while you're dating, and you might have a sneaking suspicion that something's slightly off, and then all of a sudden you're committed to them, or you have children or something, and then all of a sudden this demon attaches or comes out of hiding, and you're like, holy shit, what is going on? And then you have like this trauma bond situation where the person has really buttered you up or loved you good and whatnot, and you have a child now, and you're just like, wow, it's just, there's so much that goes into it. So I'm proud of you. I know it takes a fuck ton of courage to talk about this and to do something about it, and then to be a force of change and hope for others. I commend you immensely. I'm very proud of you. I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of all of us. When you know how to connect to source in your spirit, you have supernatural energy. But this is also why people like yourself get targeted. It's because it's very clear that you understand your own solar energy, and you're solar powered from your soul and from your spirit and your connection to source, and that is a force unlike anything else in the world. And so it's something to be protected and known about. So I'm very proud of you.
Yeah, have we talked much about where does this come from, the whole narcissism thing? Have we talked much about that yet?
Okay, well, we got into just a little bit at the beginning how nature, nurture, and spirituality seem to be involved in this. Um, there's still mystery going on here because, yes, while let's cover it again briefly, that the prefrontal cortex and other areas of the brain of children are being developed when they're little, and if they don't feel a secure attachment and a loving connection to at least one of their caregivers or parents, then their prefrontal cortex, where the empathy and the sense of stability and impulse control is formed and stabilized, if they don't have that, they can be more prone to having lower levels of empathy and also to entity attachment. It's sort of a, let's look at it like this. Let's talk about the electromagnetism stuff, because it's really important for, since you're a body, soul, and spirit, these all work together. Like body, soul, and spirit health, it's all interconnected. It's not actually separate. Um, and so let's say that you have a balloon and you scratch it on your hair or your t-shirt, then the balloon all of a sudden sticks to you. But it didn't before, but it does now. And this is how some people say, like, this person rubs me wrong. Well, that's fucking true. That can be a thing where someone rubs you wrong because their energy field is irritating to your energy field. And yes, you can do things about that, but it's a thing. And so let's say that someone grows up in a situation where this balloon is always being fucking rubbed on their t-shirt, and they're always walking around with this balloon thing, is because they haven't learned how to smooth their hair or their shirt down, in this example, to get that off. So this energy sometimes comes from parents, or it can come from like traumatic experiences in childhood or at any time in our life where something happens to us or that we're a part of an interaction, and then it's like we got balloons sticking to our t-shirt, um, like an electromagnetic thing. So let's say that a child grows up in a home where they're not really feeling loved or connected to in a way that helps them feel stable and solid, and developing their emotional field in a healthy way. And then the kid can start attracting circumstances and other people into their life subconsciously. They can become they can almost like magnetically begin attracting things to themselves that aren't very good for them, and it's not their fault. It's almost like this is why some predators look for people who have certain energy fields where they're vulnerable. um it's like a thing that can be sensed or felt, and it's so sad. But I think this is why sometimes then these kids who didn't feel secure or stable or connected to creator growing up, and they go through shit, they already struggled with low empathy from maybe nature nurture, and then now they've gone through some shit that's traumatic. And let's touch on this real quick, that when somebody is violated by being molested or abused in some type of way, there is a phenomenon that can happen that can be called energy signature transfer. And this is a phenomenon that I've covered in a lot of healings that I've done with people. And what this kind of mysterious, energetic uh, situation is, it's like, so a lot of people who were violated or abused in some way, especially as a child, then when they come to me or they go somewhere for therapy, one thing that I notice a lot of them say is that they don't feel like themselves, or that they have thoughts or feelings that don't feel like are theirs, and that they feel that they were altered after this event. And you might say, well, yes, everybody would be altered after an event like that. But this phenomenon is not just because of what happened to them, but it's also an energy transference. And so there's a way, so then it's almost like this person is then like walking around with multiple energy fields of other people's energy they've absorbed. So then maybe they might come across as a narcissist because they're confused, and they're like they're trying to find a way to feel stable. And I'm not making an excuse for this behavior, but I'm just explaining one reason why this can be a thing. And so then when the person experiences some inner healing and removes the energy signature of anyone who has violated them, it is as if they have a spiritual deliverance. I'm telling you, I've had so many people tell me that these thoughts of suicide or self harm, or these messages or programs that they would hear in their mind, saying things like, you're worthless, you'll never be good enough, you failed your mission, you might as well stop. Um, all this type of negative self talk is actually not them, and it's not theirs. And when this is removed, it's like that is no longer in their energy field. The person feels like they have a calm, stable mind all of a sudden. And then they begin making choices from a place of sovereignty and love and purity. And so I know that was a really long answer, but I would say that the way this phenomenon is created can be really complex, and there's not necessarily like a full-on set answer. But I will say that spiritual and demonic energies definitely seem to be involved, and that's why spiritual deliverance is and exorcism is completely essential for helping people heal from narcissism and from abuse from narcissism. Because um being with somebody who's dealt with the the entity or demon of narcissism, an empath can sort of absorb toxic energy from that person they're around, even though they don't have those qualities. It's like a secondhand smoke that tries to cling. It's just like this suffocating feeling, and it's just feels like the life force of your soul is trying to be accessed, and that can be removed. And I will say that I've had some experience with someone who had this demonic energy of narcissism, and this person went through an exorcism experience, and their personality changed, like 100% change. So I think that this is a phenomenon that should be discussed and explored, but I think the person has to be motivated and willing to take authority and sovereignty over their being. And this person I'm talking about, he wasn't motivated, shall we say, until fear of loss came in his life. And so sometimes people need the motivation to face these demons that they've got attached to them, and it's frustrating as fuck, I'll tell you, but it's a thing, and it definitely needs more exploration.
The nature of like where narcissism comes from, we could get into that maybe a little bit more. This idea that you can treat it with like some sort of spiritual surgery or exorcism or something like that. I think we ought to talk about it a little bit more. In my mind, if you were to ask someone if they are narcissistic or a narcissist, and they will say no. And if you can get them to come to the conclusion that they are, they will say, yeah, but so what? What's the problem? Like life is good for me. This is my mode of being in the world, and there's nothing wrong with it. And so to get through these barriers to the point where you can actually get someone to say, yes, this is my fundamental nature. Yes, it's a problem. Yes, I want to change. Very, very, very difficult. You get to that point, and then they actually have to change and readjust and recreate behaviors. I mean, it's essentially impossible for all intents and purposes. In this lifetime, like, just chalk it up to an experience in this lifetime. It's over for them. This is my opinion for the most part. Now, Cosmic said something very interesting and provocative, is that you can treat this with some sort of spiritual procedure, let's say. And so I really want to get into that and kind of like let people know maybe what to expect with that. If you go in for a procedure, they might say we have a 20% chance of success. It's like, ooh, that's not so good. But the alternative is dying, whatever. Like, let's do it. What are my chances here, Cosmic, if I'm looking at doing something like this? Because just real quick, I'd say this idea that it's like, well, just vibe high and like, be with God. It's like we're talking about the primary perceptual layer for someone is this entity that they're seeing the world through, this mode of being. Every little thing is built around this system of no empathy and manipulation. And a high vibe go with God is not going to get it done. So yeah, Cosmic, I want to hear from you first about, just tell me more about what you think the spiritual angle is like.
Well, I would say high vibe, go with God idea is what can help keep people safe. But I would say it's more in the sense of like, if you're in a house fire and you have a blanket, one of those fire blankets that, I don't know, holds moisture or something, and you use it to get the fuck out of there. It's like vibe high and connect to source helps you make the decisions you need to make to stay safe and to make healthy choices. So if you're, now let's create another analogy here. Let's say that let's say that the narcissism is someone who smokes or someone who has a parasite. Let's do both of these examples. So if you're with someone who smokes and you're like, hey, I love you, but like I fucking hate the smell of smoke, I'm allergic to this, it's toxic, it's cancerous, it's killing our family, it's killing me, it's like you smell horrible, whatever. You get into all the reasons why this is like deadly and destructive, and the person's like, yeah, I know, but like I love my smokes or whatnot. and then you're like trying to convince them that, but they're also killing you. It's affecting you. Everybody's affected. It's I mean this with all due compassion, but like, if you don't want to have secondhand smoke damage, you can't stay in that relationship. That person has to want to stop smoking, or they have to choose to not do it around you, or to like take a shower or whatever, if that can even be like removed. But the topic of narcissism is kind of different though, in the sense that it's even more involved than a shower. um let's go with parasite example. You can tell someone like, oh my god, the reason why you're struggling with these 20 symptoms that are killing you is because you have a parasite. Here's a parasite cleanse, very simple, very affordable. This has been known to cure many things. Will you please take this parasite cleanse so it doesn't cost us a fortune and you don't die? The person has to choose to take the parasite cleanse and follow the protocol to be cleansed. So all this to say, yes, now there are, quote, spiritual procedures and energetic procedures, if you will, that a person who's struggling with this entity manifestation can do to heal themselves, to cause the balloon to fall off, so to speak. They do this energy healing work or this spiritual deliverance process. It, but they have to be willing to do it. And if they're not, and you continue to hang around them, it's, you know, it's sort of on you then. And so the vibe high, go with source again. It's the way to heal yourself. It's the way to stay safe. It's fantastic advice in general, but it won't protect long. Let me reword this. It will require you to have a lot of different types of boundaries, like let's see, Empress was talking about earlier, like this, when you're asleep and you're in like an altered state. So one thing I've recommended for people who are with somebody who have this entity energy narcissism thing is to create like an energetic orb protection for yourself while you sleep. Because there's all kind of like ways you can be accessed or attacked through sleep state when you're next to someone who's got this entity going on. It is just like, I guess the question is like, how much are you willing to go through, and is that person motivated to heal and take authority over this and get to the root of it? And if they're happy with their little parasite and they love their little smokes, then maybe leave them to it.
Someone is, let's say, quote unquote, narcissistic, very difficult to stop being that in this lifetime, my opinion. But what Cosmic is saying, that energy transfer situation, somebody is an empath or not, but they're in a relationship with a narcissist, and then they want to heal or recover from that. What do they need to do, Cosmic, in your point of view, to energetically release from that? I mean, it's not just like getting over a bad breakup, is it?
No, but interestingly, it can be as simple as the person allows it to be. I know that sounds like, yeah, right. But once a person decides, I don't want this entity, spirit, whatever this narcissistic essence is, I don't want that to be a part of me any longer. I do not consent to any way that attached to me. So if they make declarations like this, I don't consent to this, I revoke and renounce any cords, contracts, or agreements that I've made consciously or unconsciously. I remove any energy signatures from me that are not mine and sovereignly from source for me. There's prayers of declarations and sovereignty, prayers of sovereignty, statements of sovereignty that create this spiritual deliverance, and it can be instantaneous. It really can be, but the person has to be genuine in their and their declaration. And then not only that, but not like, oh my God, this person like finally cried when they said this prayer. They said they feel so free now. And then, in 2 weeks, they're doing the same thing. No, it has to like flesh out in all the dimensions to be real, and genuine. And I'm not saying the person's going to be like instantly perfect and going to be like go from a full-blown psychopath, sociopath to like an empath overnight. It could, but what I'm trying to say is like they might have a few, strings to wrap in and a few like habits to still work on. It doesn't mean they will necessarily be perfect, but you will notice a literal transformation of of their identity. It will be as if the mask fell off, or like that filter that was between you and them is gone. Like you're not talking through a spirit to a person. So that's my experience so far, and I'm sure that there's more that could be explored, but I think the key is that the person genuinely means it and they're not manipulatively feeding like they're not manipulatively saying to the person who wants them to be healed, oh yeah, I'll do this, I'll say that prayer, yeah, I really want to change. They're not putting on a fake show, they're being real. That's the difference. It is wonderful now that at this time in history there's a lot of really beautiful resources on YouTube. Dr. Ramani, highly recommend her channel. And there's a lot of wonderful books like Psychopath Free and there's this narcissist one I'm trying to remember. There's some wonderful materials that are free on YouTube and wonderful books that are available that provide really quality insight as to, the nature and psychology of these toxic relationship dynamics, and actually covering now the physical and psychological damage that can take place to the person who stays, and realizing that it has an effect like secondhand smoke but intensely more intense. It can be a good motivation for the person who feels trapped or scared to realize that their life might depend on it in many ways, and to find a healthy, safe way to create the boundaries needed to move forward and create the life that's empowering them. So I guess I just wanted to say I'm proud of everybody who's gone through this and learned from it. And
wanted to briefly touch on well, I guess it was a while back now. It's a real callback. Alien Light had showed up and talked about getting wrapped up in seeing the entities beyond the veil. And the Rosicrucians really hammered that in, that there were ways you could perceive elementals, and the Druids called them the Fae around the 14th century as well. And I see a lot of myself in him when I first began. You get so wrapped up in the information and just the experience of seeing things that are outside the norm, and it's hard not to be in that way. And it's almost like a manic joy, but also like, wow, reality is not what I expected at all. So spirituality can be a type of escapism in some route, but it just does not take the place of good old-fashioned talking to the person that is opposed to you. That can make so much of a difference, just to man up or shut up and actually listen when you need to and talk to them when you're supposed to. Setting those boundaries is so important.
yeah, I totally agree. I'm really glad that you brought up how religion and spirituality can be used as a type of escape or a type of like front for like, oh, I'm dealing with this, I'm a love and light or whatever, and it's like spiritual bypassing, trying to make it look a certain way because the person's not willing to do the actual work that's required to make it have deep
Right.
roots.
And that could be rough on a lot of people. I went through something like that a few years back, and spirituality became sort of an outlet in which I could receive the love that I wasn't elsewhere. And I just wanted to really hammer that in, that you just need to take a step back and look from the outside in and see where your position is at and where their position is at, because that can make a huge difference. But spirituality can be an incredible healing tool for when you finally get to the place that you're comfortable being. You can really open yourself up and take a look at yourself. What happened in your childhood? What happened in these points in your life? And you can use the spirituality as a good tool to heal yourself. Prayer and manifestation and intentions can make such a big difference, even though those seem so little when you first get out of bed in the morning. They can just be a big game changer for you. But that's all I really wanted to say. Thank you so much for hosting this space. It's been wonderful.
Yes, thank you for sharing. I appreciate that input. And Dee, did you want to say something?
I wanted to do a little sound bowl clearing whenever you're ready before we close the space.
Sure, thank you. I wanted to make one last comment, which is, see, how do we mute the mics here? Something about speaking your truth. So, like, a lot of people have ways that they explain why they do what they do. And you can listen to someone explain why they're doing what they're doing in a relationship and try to hear them out. But if it doesn't resonate for you, you don't have to try to make it. So, for example, and another way to word this, if someone said to you, listen, I really love McDonald's, I feel really good after I eat it. It's just fantastic. It fits my budget. It makes me feel so happy. I plan on ordering it and bringing it to the house 3 times a day even. And if you say, that's fine, you can do that, but I'm not going to be sharing that meal with you. And then if the person says, oh no, you're gonna share the meal with me because I'm getting the combo pack, and this is the best way to do our money, or they have some theory about why it's important for you to share in on this, and you're like, well, I'm sorry, that doesn't resonate for me. You're free to eat that way if you want. However, if like you're in a relationship with this person in a kind of interconnected sort of way, then that could have an effect on you later with the medical bills and stuff. That would be a consequence of them choosing that, and now it's going to affect you potentially in the way that you could have spent your time and money, and the people you could have had a salad under the sun with, that you weren't able to because you were too busy dealing with the McDonald's eater. And all I'm trying to, not to judge, but just to say, like, speaking your truth to someone can be that you accept that they choose to show up or choose an experience, and then you state, but I would rather eat or do this, show up in life this way. And I think speaking truth can be a powerful place.
Yeah, thanks for that. And Dee, it's a very nice offer. We could do the sound bowl here in just a sec. I just want to say thanks to everyone who came up and chatted. 3 was definitely with us for a while and brought some great information. I do want to say before we close, because I know Cosmic is not much of a self-promoter. However, her and I have done a couple healing things together, and very powerful, very profound. It's something she does as a service. So if any of this resonated, you can check out her website or get in contact with her, because it's a unique blend of experience that she's bringing. And I don't know anyone who knows more about this topic. Go check out Dr. Ramani, Ramani, on YouTube. And she has a lot of little stuff about all the 3D stuff that goes with, narcissism. If you want to get to the real root and deal with, if you're an empath, if you're just a person who's had narcissistic parents or relationship, just, ping Cosmic and see what she's all about with all this stuff. Because, yeah, for me, very, very important. Saved my life and very profound. So just thanks for hosting the space, Cosmic.
Yes, thank you very much. That was kind of you, and you're welcome. And Dee, thank you for clearing the room. You can take it from here, because I think that's a beautiful way to exit.
Thank you, Cosmic, for your knowledge, and I so relate to the work that you do, as I do the same work. So it's amazing to hear it, and it needs to be out there more. And yes, this needs to be spoken. The truth needs to be spoken for sure. And from that, I want to say thank you to all who have participated. And I'm going to be clearing the space with the bowl, and just take it in.
Wow, so beautiful. Thank you, everybody. So much love to everybody. And we do the Soul Spaces every Thursday at 11:11 Central Standard. So hope to see you guys next week and have a lovely day.